discuss this with longtime Trump supporter, Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy. Duffy, the best to you and your family for Thanksgiving.
You too, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so make the case for Nikki Haley. People know her, very strong political presence down there in South Carolina, showed her at her best during a very hard time during the hate shooting down there, critic of Trump. No foreign or diplomatic experience. She'd be the first person to go into the ambassador job to the UN without that kind of background. But what's the plus side for you?
Listen, she's a smart woman. She's been the governor of South Carolina. She's accomplished. And I don't think you need this great history of diplomatic experience to go into the UN and be successful. And so you take accomplished, smart people and you plug them into the right position, and you'll see them flourish, you'll see them grow, and you'll see them represent the United States very, very well. And I think what you want to do is find people who will share your worldview, especially when they go and represent you from the administration to the UN or any other post. And I think probably Mr. Trump saw that there is that connection that the two share on how they view the world, and that's why she was selected, I would imagine. I wasn't in the room.
Are you a Romney or a Rudy guy?
You know, I think there's something to be said about loyalty. I like Rudy Giuliani. I think he's a great guy and would serve the country well. But again, I think Mr. Trump is looking at different things in different candidates. And I think that Mr. Romney is well respected all over the world. And he ran a great campaign for president. Though he said mean things about Mr. Trump, I think it's pretty remarkable and says a lot about Mr. Trump that he's brought Mr. Romney into the fold and even is considering him after the nasty things he said about Mr. Trump for the position of Secretary of State. And not only that, that he's bringing in Nikki Haley. I mean, it's quite remarkable that he's looking for talent, not trying to settle old scores.
The blowback on his light touch with disavowing neo-Nazis and alt-right hate groups. Why do you think Donald Trump doesn't call them by name? He doesn't say neo-Nazis or all the things that you would do if a group like that ever said, we're so happy about Duffy. You'd call him out by name. You'd say, that's not who we are. I'm not about that. No one should be about that. He's not that heavy-handed here. Why?
Well, I don't know. I'm not in the room with Mr. Trump. But you also have to recognize, Chris, that he's trying to put together a government, and he doesn't have much time to do it. And
he's got time to talk about Saturday Night Live and Hamilton and everything else that piques his interest, but this he doesn't have time for.
So, no, but to be very clear, he did condemn these people. Mike Pence didn't go to the neo-Nazi rally. He did go to Hamilton and was called out on stage at Hamilton. I mean, I think these are two different scenarios. But again, I'm proud that he called them out. He should have called out this organization.
By name.
He could get stuck too. Chris, he can get stuck too when the media, I mean, every little thing that's said about him, the media can go, did you call out these people? Did you call out those people? You haven't built out your administration quick enough. Let's give the guy a break.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree with the nitpicking.
And we got to give him time and space.
I agree with the nitpicking, but this is different. This is different.
Yeah.
I agree with you. You don't nitpick. He hasn't even picked his team yet. You know, how do you let him get in office, let him start doing things, and then you can assess what's positive and negative about how he does the job. I get that. But we're talking about something different here. Every leader of this country, and on congressional levels as well, when it comes to hate, when it comes to anyone raising their hand in Nazi fashion, you get heavy and hard immediately on those people because you don't want them to peek their heads up ever. He didn't do that.
Yeah, but he did do that. Now you would say, well, he didn't do it quick enough, and I'm not in the room. I'm not defending the timeline of it, but he did condemn them, and you have to recognize the guy has been, you know, starting meetings at 5 o'clock in the morning, going till 9 o'clock at night, interviewing different people to get the right Americans into the right positions to make America great again, as he would say. And so the guy's time has been consumed, and though he might be sitting at home, you know, watching the news and seeing what happens at Hamilton, and he might see Saturday Night Live because he's done with work at 10 o'clock at night after a full day and a full weekend of interviewing, we do have to cut him some slack. And I agree with you. We don't allow any space for racist, hateful, neo-Nazi groups. We should condemn them. We should call them out. I'm happy that he did it, and we should take it at that, Chris. Good on you, Mr. Trump. Call them out. Disavow them. They have no place, I think, in in our American society.
Early and often, and with the hostility that he has for anything else, who deserves more hostility than these groups? I'm going to ask you one more thing before I let you get on with your Thanksgiving festivities. The decision not to go after Clinton, do you think that any of his support base should feel duped? That he was so strong on this, that this is definitely going to happen. It gave a lot of people confidence that Donald Trump would be different, that he'd go after people who they perceived as corrupt, largely at Donald Trump's urging. And now he says, she suffered enough, I'm okay with that. Should people feel duped?
Well, I would tell
and if not, why not?
I don't know, Duke, but I think there's a lot of people on the right who, if he starts to move, as you've reported throughout this morning, on a number of different positions, they're going to be frustrated, and that frustration will turn into anger. In regard to Hillary Clinton, Chris, I think that it's important to note there's two different investigations. One is the emails in the private server. Director Comey from the FBI has investigated that. The Department of Justice said they're not going to prosecute it. And I think you have to let that dog lie. Let it go. I don't think it's appropriate that Mr. Trump come into the presidency and demand that investigation be reopened.
Where was
now,
that, Duffy, during the campaign? When we had this conversation during the campaign, you were like, she broke laws. I'm a former prosecutor. She's got to go. Yeah. But what happened to that, Duffy?
Hold on a second. Let me make my point, then I'll come back to you chastising me. The Clinton Foundation is fair game. That investigation is not complete. And so I think if there's criminal activity within that organization, that has to be called out, and Mr. Trump has to stand out of the way and let a special prosecutor investigate it and potentially hold Mrs. Clinton to account. I think that the American people, in regard to the email server, we had a big American jury trial in this election, and Mrs. Clinton lost. She's been called out for her bad acts with the server, exposing American secrets. And at one point, we can say, is that enough? Did we get our pound of flesh on her? I think so. And let's set this one aside. The investigation has already taken place. It's over. Let's move forward, making America great again. And you know this, Chris. If you're going to actually get the big things done that are going to help grow our economy and put those middle Americans who've been left behind back to work, you can't have a massive big fight with Mrs. Clinton.
I hear you.
How do I secure the border? How do I roll back regulation? How do I reform the tax code? How do I fix health care? And a lot of those things, you need Democrats in the Senate to get on board to help you out. Let's work on those things that help grow people's paychecks and their opportunity. And I think that's the mandate that Mr. Trump has, is to help middle America out, not to go on this other path.
All right. Sean Duffy, thank you for being on to make the case, as always, on New Day. And again, best to you and the family for Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, Chris. Have a good one.
Allison.
Okay, a couple